Before we get going, this is probably, I think, one of the most exciting times it is to be a Connecticut resident, and Greenway enthusiasts that you all are, that are in this room, are going to hear some really exciting stuff. And this is one of two meetings of today that's going on. This meeting in East Hartford, and then shortly thereafter, Parker, Caitlin, and Matt will be heading over to Simsbury because they're going to announce really how this trail, how the East Coast Greenway is going to get through Simsbury. I was asked by Lee, the interim, he's the interim town manager, and Lee said, would you like to speak? I said, no, there's nothing I'm going to add to what these folks are going to say. Let the professionals speak. But I will ask one thing, Lee, call for a vote. So hopefully, sometime this evening there will be a vote, and the yeas will have it, hopefully. So, but as you have already seen, and I'm not going to take up their sale, their story, but there's some great progress being made in Connecticut on the East Coast Greenway, and this is what this meeting is about, is what you're going to see, some absolute mind-blowing stuff that is about to happen in Connecticut. I'm very proud to be a Connecticut resident and part of this amazing project. And there'll be a world introduction of a short video in a few minutes. But without any further, would Matt like to come up first? Okay, so a nice round of applause for Matt Hart, who is the Executive Director of CROG. Awesome. And the only rules I have is that, come around this way, because then you'll avoid the courts.
This can't go.
Okay,
We're going to do the dance.
It's
Don't
just
speak into this, huh?
Speak into that, yes, because then we get good audio. Good. Okay.
Good afternoon, folks. Did anyone besides Mr. Hankins take their bike here? Ride their bike here? Oh, John, you let me know. We got a couple. That's awesome. Well, very pleased to be here. Thank you, Bruce and Steve, for the invitation. Really excited to talk about our project that we're working on. This is one of the aspects of our portfolio as a council of governments that I enjoy the most, is our work on multi-use trail projects. And this is a really important one. I happen to be something of an advocate myself as a member of the Greenway and of the Farming Canal Heritage Corridor Trail Group as well. And I'm a very avid user of the trail and really excited about, its potential. And want to thank you all for the great work you've been doing for many, many years. And I'm already talking to Bruce, hey, after we settle on the route here, how do we next move into design and then construction, in a timely way, so that we can keep it going, keep the momentum moving forward. So really looking forward to Parker's presentation in a couple minutes. He and Caitlin can outline all the good work we've been doing over the last several months to work on this gap closure, right? How we bring the trail over from Simsbury through Bloomfield, through North Hartford, and then connecting across the river to our location here in East Hartford. And then we have that continuous section, through most of our fair state. And then we can focus on Fairfield County, right, Bruce? I know you're doing good work there too. So that's all I've got to say. Really appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight and to showcase our project. If you haven't met her, wanted to introduce Caitlin Palmer, who is our Director of Regional Planning and Development, and a shout out to one of my favorite policy board members, Mayor Mike Walsh. Mayor, great to see you as well.
Do you want to say a few words?
This way.
Listening to you.
Okay. Hello. Okay, that's good. I don't really have too much to add to that. Just again, really excited to be here. Really thankful for all the work that you all have been doing for many years. The East Coast Greenway and closing the gap in the capital region has been a priority for CROG for a number of years. So I'm really excited to be participating in this study. And I'm excited for Parker to kind of show you what we've been working on. We're about halfway through, and we've been very busy. So without further ado, I really want to turn it over to Parker.
Let's see. Got a little clip here. Should I get that on for audio? The heck, I feel like my things are backwards. I know. Let's see. How about that? Does that work? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Caitlin. So my name is Parker Sorensen, the project manager from the consultant team working with CROG, really rolling up our sleeves and really in the weeds on the Capital Region East Coast Greenway study. So really excited to share where we are with that study with everyone here today. So really appreciate the welcome. So I don't really need to spend too much time on this, but we all know why we're here, taking a look at the East Coast Greenway, Maine to Florida, about 3,000 miles envisioned and about 1,000 miles complete to date. So we're really working hard to do our part here in the state of Connecticut. Just an overview on our project. We are really focused on a 4-town area here in the capital region. So looking at Simsbury, Bloomfield, Hartford, and East Hartford. So that is about 12 miles of gap. And one thing you'll notice, I don't really have a pointer here, but if you're looking at the blue lines north of New Haven, those are all the sections that are either complete or in process or in progress for completion. So the red that you see in the circled area, that is really one of the last major gaps from New Haven really to the Rhode Island state line. So we're really positioned here in the capital region with this study to be identifying one of the last major gaps in the area. So that's really exciting. Generally, goal and statewide by 2027, this is really putting us to be about 2/3 complete. So you'll see that major red line in Fairfield County. I know that got mentioned. But that will essentially complete 150 miles of trail between New Haven and Rhode Island. So very exciting where we are today. So just want to recognize that there were certainly, we know we've been talking about this for a long time. To my knowledge, this has really been the first multi-agency effort to look at this gap in the capital region. As Matt and Caitlin mentioned, this is really managed by CROG, the regional entity, really looking at transportation projects in the capital region. I'm from FHI Studio, but we are joined by 2 other consultants looking at both the economic impact and VHB, who is presenting tonight up in Simsbury. So they're really taking the lead on the Simsbury piece. And of course, we are joined by the partner agencies at all levels of government, from the federal government, from National Park Service to the state, a lot of participation from DOT and DEEP. Municipalities, with all 4 municipalities contributing to this effort as well. And our NGO partners, you might have heard of Riverfront Recapture, iQuilt, and of course the East Coast Greenway Alliance, who are here today. So we're working really hard with all of our agency partners, so really appreciate it. Just a note on the process. We are governed by an advisory committee. We are meeting approximately once every other month, bi-monthly, and it's really our conduit to the municipal leadership and staff to make sure that we really are on track in each of the municipalities that we are looking at. At the conclusion of this study, we're going to be looking at for municipal endorsement. So then the towns can really get this thing into construction. We all want to see this thing going forward. So just want to highlight too, we do have all of our advisory committee content online. So if you're interested in seeing more information, there are, I think we've had 4 or 5 advisory committee meetings, so you're more than welcome to really dive in the weeds there. In terms of project schedule, we really started earlier this year. We're about halfway through this project, and the goal is shortly after the new year, sometime in the winter, to wrap up a final report for final endorsement. So we're really here at the tail end of our screening analysis So I'm going to share some of those results with you for East Hartford and Bloomfield, so pretty exciting. Just also want to note that we have down in here the Griffin Line study, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But essentially we're doing a little bit more in-depth detail analysis on how a trail could work in this corridor, because we know that that rail line specifically has been something in conversation through past years. We've been doing a lot of outreach for this project. This is going back into, I think, April. We did a spring workshop series in each of our communities, East Hartford, Hartford, and Bloomfield. So just some images there. But we've also been doing pop-ups through the summer. To date, about almost 300 members of the public reached through all of these events. I've been collecting emails. Certainly if you want more information, please sign in for today's meeting, and we'll be sharing things online via email as we go forward. So appreciate it. So generally that's kind of what the project is and how we've been managing the project. Just what's getting some of the fun findings that we've had on the screening analysis thus far. So this is looking at the primary gap that we have in Bloomfield, Hartford, and East Hartford. Let me see if I get a laser pointer here. It's a little, how's the screen for everyone? It's okay? Okay, so just to get you oriented, where my laser pointer is, this is Day Hill Road, where the Bloomfield Greenway currently terminates, right at the end of the Griffin rail line. There's the little parking lot there. Going to the blue dot, Bloomfield Center. So this is really what we're calling the Bloomfield North Gap. Early on in the process, Bloomfield Center was identified as really a key connection for the town of Bloomfield. They didn't want to be routing this trail outside of the center. So we're taking a look at all the options between the center and the existing Bloomfield Greenway, kind of independently of the areas to the south. The second gap is really from Bloomfield Center to the really Hartford, downtown Hartford in the Connecticut River. So many of you are probably aware that the Founders Bridge in Hartford is really the best pedestrian bridge as it stands today to get across the river. So the assumption really that we've been working on is that will probably remain the trail recommended alignment to East Hartford. So Hartford Bloomfield is really a combined gap as well. So I'll talk a little bit about where Hartford stands, but we do have some of the initial results for the Bloomfield section of that gap. And then finally here in East Hartford, so from Simmons Road over to the riverfront, and again the Founders Bridge, that being the last gap. So obviously we're here today, so we can share some of the results. Part of our public process and our work with the advisory committee is to talk about how we should be reviewing potential alignments. For East Hartford, we had up to 22 alignments that we actually reviewed. So how are we scoring these relative to one another? So we worked through a pretty extensive process to make sure that we were including all the right data and weighting these appropriately. So we had 8 criteria from cost, right-of-way, personal security, environmental impacts, equity, connectivity, traffic safety, and primarily making sure that this thing is an off-road facility. So you'll see kind of the weightings there. And interestingly, when we're going through the process, the advisory committee results and the public outreach results pretty much were in line. So that's really was affirming our view for how we were screening these alignments. So I'll go through starting in East Hartford, and then we'll wrap up with Bloomfield on what we looked at and where we stand today. This is a map that we developed early on for the process. We had 22 unique alignments looking at all sorts of areas and permutations of trail through this gap. Just want to categorize these for you. We were looking first, identify the Hockanum River corridor. Many might be aware there's actually some boardwalk that's in rough shape today, but the vision was maybe that could be improved in some way and connect into a trail on Hillside Street down into Simmons Road where the existing terminus is, and then maybe over to the Main Street, East Hartford, and down the west side. So you'll see some of the options that we were evaluating that were connecting to the Hockenham River. Silver Lane, so it's this set of red options. Anything from let's take a look at a side path along Silver Lane to let's take a look at grade separation over, we know we have East Hartford Boulevard and Robert Streets, a very large intersections to cross with the PED button. So maybe we can do some grade separation and then even some behind, can we sneak up along the 84 corridor? So we were really taking a look at a wide range in the Silver Lane corridor itself. And then a southern options past the Pratt & Whitney Stadium property and using either National Development property or towards Brewer Street. We know that Brewer Street can be a little constrained, but what can we do looking down in that way across Main Street and then essentially hooking up to Goodwin University to come back up the Connecticut River. So those are really three major areas that we were taking a look at. And again, 22 alignments of different combinations of trail that we were taking a look at through these areas. So I do have newsletters. Maybe we went through all the copies, but they're in the back. They have this map in more detail. But essentially, this is where we landed with East Hartford. So this is what we are proposing for the short list, or essentially two options that we're going to evaluate in more detail, and then essentially let the town decide which way is the way forward. So option one is this light blue line, and what was scoring well, it was not, let's do a side path along Silver Lane and have everyone push the button. That was amongst the lowest scoring options. It was, let's do something in this corridor. It's the most direct, but let's see if we can do grade separation over those busy roads. So you'll see some grade separation called out, whether it be over Robert Street, Main Street, some of these highway ramps. We know those are critical areas in that corridor. So we really want to be thinking about how those, the details of how that's really going to function. So we're really in that process now, but that's where that map stands, that area stands.
Very quick question.
Yeah.
So by grade separated, we mean bridges or tunnels, right? So which is it?
That's part of the short list option. Right? So,
because that's the crux of that problem right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons of each, I will say. We've been looking at both in depth. We don't have anything ready to share yet, but we know that we don't want to be sending people necessarily across these big intersections with lots of traffic, many travel lanes.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, that's the. Yeah. Sometimes I'm in the weeds, so I have sometimes terminology that can be.
I just want to make sure everyone knew.
Yep. So we're talking some bridges and or culverts to cross some of these major roads. The second area that was highlighted is the southern option, predominantly the National Development parcel. There's some conservation easement that allows for trail development. There's actually old runway roads for some of the old airport that was there. There's some old access roads in there. So the concept is to potentially repave that. I see Doug's in the audience. We've been talking extensively how to deal with some of the Brewer Street's concerns and how to get over from Contractors Road to Main Street. But that's some of the things that we're trying to work out in the short list. So really, this is really just giving us, the screening to date has really been just trying to tell us where to focus our energy. And then that essentially comes up the east side of the Route 2 corridor. It's fairly flat. There's a lot of state right-of-way, and then goes under to cross over to Riverside Drive and then up to the existing trail on the riverfront. So I think we got two really good options. I just want to note that you'll see the one thing that fell off the list was the Hockenham River Trail. Environmentally sensitive area, a lot of infrastructure in terms of boardwalk. One of my surprises through the screening process was actually the logistics of trying to get to the boardwalk area would be requiring several at grade or crossing at road level with a pedestrian button. Many busy roads like Main Street along Pitkin, Simmons. So that was, for those reasons, that really didn't score well. So that has come off our list through this process thus far. I'll stop there.
No, can you show where's the Hockenham River Trail on that map?
So that's a thin blue line. So if you got the,
There, okay.
yeah. And we originally was looking at probably a side path on Pitkin Street. And it's a lot of driveways, a lot of commercial activity. It was tough. Yeah.
Curious, did you look at or talk to anybody about going through the property along Willow Street?
So we have, I'll just say we've talked to Pratt throughout this process, and that was not an option available to us.
Yeah, but that was the original design, that was an old VHP design that, in fact, was funded. I think there was $3 million to build it.
Yep.
And, and Homeland Security and, Action 9/11 really just put the kibosh on it pretty much.
My understanding was there's actually a way to put a path through there that's completely secured away from the Pratt property. It could be fenced and it could wrap right through there. There's legal issues regarding toxic ground contamination.
There are some Superfund site issues, I have heard.
Yeah.
Although honestly, if you encapsulate over such things,
Exactly.
usually it's not a big deal. No, the real problem, from my understanding, was that they require security gates.
So we were taking a look. One thing I'll share is through the public meeting and workshops, even Runway Road was something that came up, and we discussed this. And ultimately we were faced with some alternatives that could be fencing on both sides, and really a concern for what that environment might look like in such situations. So something that we've certainly were talking about earlier on in this spring.
Thank you.
Any other questions on East Hartford? Just shift our focus to Bloomfield and really what we're looking at for Bloomfield. So I'll zoom in to each of these areas, but essentially my red dot here, that's Bloomfield Town Center. The orange line is Griffin Line, the rail line going up to the existing terminus of the trail on Day Hill Road. And that was identified, rail with trail was identified as a potential option. There was actually an old study that we've been following from Fuss and O'Neill, kind of lays out how that could work. The purple side over here is essentially looking at Woodland Ave. So that is an area east of Griffin Rail Line, and probably putting up something, there's Wintonbury Reservoir in that area, maybe a trail along that area. And then the light blue, dark blue is really Reservoir 3, and then in part some areas that are along Griffin Rail Line as well. So those are really the three major options that we were looking at in Bloomfield. South of the center, you'll see that we're kind of going in two different directions, and that is really because it's all related to what we're trying to figure out in Hartford. So we're doing some of the initial screening to, regardless of which direction we're going, how do we want this thing routed through Bloomfield? So option one is really looking at this area towards University of Hartford. Again, Griffin Rail Line was something identified, but you'll see the dark blue and light green options are various options around the Copaco area. And then these purple lines are trying to get towards 189, the Mattianock Natural Area Preserve, and trying to maybe coming down into Keeney Park. So that's really what's going on there. So the short story is these are the rankings. The orange here, you'll see 117 Griffin Rail Line. It's fairly direct off-road, so that's scoring pretty well. And the next scoring alternative was this light blue line with the Reservoir 3 and into the center. The southern options, if we're looking at Going towards U-Heart, we're actually withholding our scoring for this yellow section because we are evaluating that right now, with the Griffin study that we're looking at. But the best scoring option, you'll see this dashed teal line, 84.4, essentially trying to hook up to Capaco Plaza, if you're familiar with that area, up to 189. And 218, and then up Tyler Street to a lot of their municipal services on Park Ave. They got a lot of great schools and municipal services right in a row there. So overall, this is the map that's presented in the handout. This is really where we're looking for the short list. These two options north of the town center being the Griffin Rail with Trail and Reservoir 3. And then these options south, which would be go around the Copaco area, kind of behind the Planet Fitness. And then this green line is actually utilizing in part some of the old trolley line that connected up to Bloomfield Center. And it's now Eversource easement. So some exciting developments there. I'll pause if there's any other question specific to Bloomfield. Yeah.
You might be going there, but can you describe what the Griffin rail line looks like today and whether there's enough room for a trail?
Yeah, I'll get that on the next slide. Yeah, I'll cover that. Thanks. Yeah.
Joanne, Bloomfield. First of all, do you, in your scoring, take into account, at one time, every town you went through gave you some credit with trails money. In other words, every time I would be very interested to have this trail go through Hart, even just a corner of West Hartford, for example, and bring that town into play. Do you pay any attention to that?
So the question is are we trying to maximize essentially the number of municipalities that we're serving from this trail? I will say tangentially, like in the public meetings, we were talking kind of like broadly speaking of some of these other municipalities, but in the screening criteria that was not addressed. I will share though, I mean, I think our assumption in the political climate as it stands today, the reality is with Plainville, it was that local match was something that was funded by the state. So our assumption is that would continue for these trails as well.
I can't speak for DOT, but I can say that the major capital projects of the East Coast Greenway, they have stated that they will find the other 10 to 20% match for most, if not all, of the East Coast Greenway projects out there. And that includes the current commissioner as well. So, you know, we will see. Don't forget, you know, we're in a condition right now where we're awash with federal money. So, you know, they've got it, you know.
And they disappear tomorrow.
Well, that's my comment. You're exactly right. So, you know, we've all seen, it's a big sine curve, right? There's money and then, oh boy, not so much. So, yeah.
Thanks. So as mentioned, we're taking a look also in Hartford. Our team is really continuing to evaluate the technical feasibilities of rail with trail along all or parts of the Griffin rail line. This has come up continuously, so we know that there's a lot of interest in this option. At this point, rail abandonment and conversion to a trail is not the focus of our team, just because that is assumed to be physically viable. You take the rails out, you could just put a trail in that old corridor. Really, we're trying to take a look at if the rail is going to stay, how can we coexist with that existing use? There's a lot of obstacles that I'm sure Bruce can talk about at length of making the rail disappear. So we were really focused on the design of rail with trail. And that's going to be setting us up for the Hartford section. Our short list is really anticipated to include the best Griffin rail line after we're doing all of our research and what the design would look like, and the next best alternative. So this is a map, this is a picture that was snapped recently looking north, right by Weaver High School. So about 80 to 100 foot of right-of-way there, but you'll see one of the Complicating factors is that Eversource has an easement 15 foot off the rail center. So you'll see that both sides have the transmission line going up. So really, rail with trail would look like probably something like the trail on the outside of those transmission poles. Yeah.
Is this rail active or?
It's active, and there's a operator on the rail line. In terms of how many trains you're seeing on a weekly basis, it's something.
It hasn't been used in a year and a half.
So
Well, you can say that, but that's not the legal aspect. The legal aspect is that there is currently a freight contract in existence. Now, whether they use the damn thing or not is a whole other issue, right?
It hasn't been used in a year.
But, exactly, but the feds, the Surface Transportation Board, that's what they care about, right? So it would be, because don't forget, you gotta go through the feds to get this done. This is not just, the governor can't wave his wand. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately, with railroads. I wish it did.
it is a DOT, I'll just say it is a DOT owned right of way.
I have to say
So this is,
talk about grade crossing. The advantage of the Griffin line going into Hartford is that there is a grade crossing almost every intersection. You don't have to get off your bike. You can ride right from Bloomfield to the Capitol without getting off your bike. I mean, that's big. And I really think if we need to put political muscle behind it, we can do that. State government and even federal.
yep.
And I don't give up on that because it would be so great to have that Griffin line.
No, I agree. We are hard at work trying to figure out how to make these things coexist so we don't, as Bruce mentioned, get kind of hung up in the federal process. So stay tuned for those details. Lastly, I just want to touch base on what's happening up in Simsbury. So this has kind of been in a little bit of a separate process from the main gap in Bloomfield to East Hartford, simply just because there's been more studies that they've been really conducted in the last 5 to 10 years in this area. So this will be a separate report. But if anyone hasn't been up here, this is the Tariffville Connector Trail. That it really extends the existing Bloomfield Greenway, and this is going to bring you right into Main Street of Tariffville, and should be complete this fall. So I don't know if we're going to hold them to a date yet, but
Call it T-ville.
T-ville, there you go. So this is active. You said that this looks a lot better even today than a few weeks ago when this photo was taken, but you'll see that this is a...
Third week of October is what I hear from DOT. Should be complete.
So that is a recent trail within our gap that we're looking at in the 4 towns. Just brief summary. We took a look at what do we got? 6, 7, 8, 9 alternatives through Tariffville. Scored them in a very similar manner to the other gaps that we were looking at, and the kind of takeaway is the highest scoring alternative at this point in time is the orange route that essentially is trying to follow the old rail grade towards the Farmington Canal Trail on the other side of the river. So this would include a new bridge to serve the trail over the Farmington River and connect into Tariffville Park. So this is actually the most direct connection. Something that we heard from the town early on is that a direct connection between T-ville and the center of Simsbury is really critical for that community. So just a focus look of what that could look like on the rail corridor, trying to balance, staying out of the floodplains and whatnot. And we think we can do it given the old rail grades that are there today. So if you're interested in more information, tonight, which Bruce will advertise, we'll be talking about this at the Simsbury Select Board. So just want to wrap up. We do have more engagement. If you sign in, we're going to have some virtual newsletters that will come out as well, so to keep you up to date with any of the visualizations that we're coming out for any of our communities. We have pop-up events, additional stakeholder meetings. If you have a group in any of these communities that you want to go out and see, well, what are we taking a look at? Where's this trail going to be? And let's go walk the area. We are willing to do that, and we have that as part of our project. So feel free to reach out to me, Bruce, or Caitlin. We can make that happen. And certainly just keep up to date with our team online. We'll send out some emails. We don't spam or anything, but we have some newsletters as well. Where we're going with this is in the winter of 2023 to 24. We're going to have some final public meetings and critically final meetings with the town councils, city council for endorsement so that this thing can be municipally endorsed and going for grant funding. So that's all I have. Feel free to email me. I certainly am more than happy to chat.
Right, good to see you all. I am in fact Bruce Donald, but I think everyone here knows that. I'm looking for someone I don't know, and I haven't found one yet, so I think this is good. Obviously, thank yous to everyone involved. CROG has left the building, but many thanks to them, and obviously the town and FHI Studio. I dredged through the old accounts. This is 1989 in New York City, and I only recognize 2 people out of this group, which gives you an idea of how long we've been trying to do this, and how many people volunteers have gone through the system over the years. It's just quite remarkable. And you know all of this. We don't need to work on that. This we have. This is essentially where we are across the Northeast, the East, I should say. We are based in Durham, North Carolina, which is where the major part of the staff is, communications staff, Niles and Dennis, who run the place. I do want to introduce a couple of folks here today. So the Connecticut Committee chairs Steve Mitchell, who is filming us. Let's see. Rob? Dexter. I know. Barbara Modio. And a bunch of other folks here that over the years have worked with us, some of whom quite passionately. I do want to introduce, because many of you have not met her yet, Allison Burson, who is my immediate boss, and she's small but feisty. Would you like to say a couple words? Would you come on up? Here, that's that, and that's that.
Excellent.
And I'll get out of your way.
I'll be very fast. Thank you for letting me join you today. So I am our National Greenway Director, so I am trying to make sure our team is coordinated on trail planning, Maine to Florida. And I was very, very lucky today to have multiple people from the Hop River Trail Alliance take me for a tour and let me see some of the trail. And what I told Bruce when I got back is that Connecticut has been hiding how many amazing trails, and we need to tell more people about it. So thank you all for all the work you have done over many years and continue to do on just amazing work on connecting up your trail system. I'm very happy to be here today and learn more about what's going on. And thank you all for letting me join you.
Thanks. All right. This is like a torture gadget. There we go. Okay. Thank you. Here we all are. Mary Page in Communications is taking this photo, so there's actually one more person. This was in Portland this spring. This is our staff. And then there's this thing. Let's see if I can make this work.
World premiere.
It's like the coolest thing in the world. I mean, you can't, it's just, they're all into us, you know, they're doing this. And the finished product is special. Connecticut is 54% done as we speak, with the 18 projects that are currently funded in Connecticut, totaling about $96 million. We will be at 64% in about 5 years. It was thought for a long time that these so-called rails to trails were really, linear parks. They were really amenities. Turns out they're much more than that. They really are felt to be transportation corridors at this point. Completing them, particularly in my area in southern New England, but also elsewhere as well, so that they go point to point, city to city, is really, I think, tremendously important. A very deep element when you build a trail both within and through a municipality, a town, or a city, of community building, where the community comes together and starts to really value the trail as a resource, and it becomes something that ends up really being beloved in the community. I think finally getting New Haven done is really a big deal. New Haven has been trying to get from Yale University campus down to Long Wharf, finally now getting constructed right now as we speak. I think that ultimately a through route has a dramatic amount of impact. There's something that I haven't talked about yet, which is in fact tourism. New Haven to Hartford to Providence, great example. Literally should be done in the next 5-6 years. It's going to be a huge deal for people wanting to do the weekend or 3 days, but they got to stay somewhere, right? So they got to eat somewhere. They have to fix their bike. They have to spend money. There's an economic imperative that comes from the fact that people from outside of your community are coming into your community. As a practical matter, for somebody who wants to invest in these trails, is what you're getting back. And what you're getting back, the notoriety of being someone that's helping to build a facility that literally is universally loved. And there's a very deep satisfaction of seeing the project that you have basically, gone from literally a line on a map to suddenly getting built.
All right, enough of that. But I do appreciate our communications staff doing these up and down the East Coast Greenway. They've been very successful. This is the first time that's been seen in public. So, there we go. I refuse to see that again. So Ride the State this year ended up being, I think, a success. It poured, as has most of this year, which is enough to drive everyone who wants to do an event absolutely crazy. But we did indeed have 84 riders in the rain. We raised over $10,000. Huge thanks to Fitzgerald's, Mitchell Auto Group, the Farmington Valley Trails Council, the Farmington Canal Rail to Trail Association, who provided both money and volunteers for this event, which was a big deal. We have a number of people here who rode in it. Where did Pete finish to? Oh, there you are. Pete was the leader, in fact, of the ride. And June 22nd next year, and looks like it's going to be the same route. I do want to talk about the Connecticut Rec Trails Grant Program. Kim Bradley is here from DEEP. Raise your hand. There she is. Don't browbeat her. She's a lovely person. But she's running that program for DEEP. And it is a big deal. The Connecticut Greenway Council, which I think many of you know I'm the chairman of, acts as an advisor to DEEP for the program and provides a lot of support with the application and subsequent program awards. And we're very pleased to do that. So one of the things that came out this year in the budget process was for the first time the governor has put this program as a line item in his 2-year budget. And that was a big deal. And in fact, if we can keep that going, maybe we don't have to do this constant legislative push every year to get the legislature to agree to put this money on the bonding agenda. And I would note that it is on the bonding agenda. Well, we don't know. They've canceled this month's meeting, which they often do. They only meet 3 or 4 times a year. But we're hoping it's going to be on October 26th. Stay tuned, obviously. A shout out to Connecticut Forest and Parks Association. They've been our lobbying partner on this for many, many years, since it started in 2015. And RFPs, RFAs, I suppose you call them, will certainly be going out later this year. If it gets on the bonding agenda, it will be voted in the affirmative. It just has to get on the agenda. And you can't see this, but in fact, I can't see this. Hold on. But a couple of things of note here. University of Connecticut, that is the Connecticut Trail Finder and Connecticut Trail Census. Hot River Trail signage program, fantastic. I'm looking forward to that happening. Keeney Park Trail connectivity design money, very interested in seeing that. Many of you are aware, in the last presentation, you might have seen a line going through Keeney Park from Bloomfield. That's a very real possibility, hooking up with Riverfront Recapture's trail north from where they currently end at the boathouse up all the way to Windsor. And that's going to be a huge connection if that happens. So stay tuned for that, and I can talk in more length about that, and will, in fact. Putnam, Thompson, Goodwin University, Riverfront Recapture, Town of Greenwich, that's an interesting one. Greenwich and Stamford are looking to do a separated bike trail, and I'm going to talk more about that in some more detail in Fairfield County. That's a very interesting initiative that is basically brand new. And East Hampton, and Connecticut RC&D. That's the 12-town Airline State Park Trail Alliance. Or we're not. What is it actually going to be called? Do we know?
It's going to be up to the partners.
Yeah, right. But anyway, we essentially gave them some money to get that going, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens there. But I know that some folks from that kind of loose organization right now have been talking to the Hot River Trail Alliance because they've done it right. They've put it together, I think, in an extremely well done way, and it's possible that these folks will try to do the same thing. Greenway's plate program, I always want to talk about this because the Save the Sound plates and the Greenway's plates are the only plates that are not swept into the general fund. As such, we've only received about I don't know what we've received. Something like $6,000 from this program so far. But it's essentially brand new starting last year. And that will go toward a variety of things that the Greenways Council does. It's actually called the Greenways Fund. It was set up by the legislature. And quite a number of years ago, 15, 16, 17 years ago, it was taken away from us and just thrown in the general fund. So we were able to get this money back. So stay tuned. We'll see what we're going to be able to do with it. Yeah.
How does that work? Is that money that renewing the Greenway plate?
Yeah.
Every year?
Yeah. No. It's a one-time deal based on. So you're getting the vanity plate, right? Well, actually, you can just get a Greenway's plate and not a vanity plate, which I think is $75. $150, you can get whatever you want on. So a vanity plate and a Greenway's plate, which is what I've got on my car. But essentially, when you re-up, part of that money gets funneled from DMV to DEEP, and then DEEP segregates it as Greenway's fund money. That's essentially the nuts and bolts of it. But DMV has to funnel it, right? So, which means somebody at Deep has to go, hello, guys, where's the money? Because they just don't send it, I wish it worked that way. Greenways for All, very quickly, this is something that we're doing nationally as the East Coast Greenway. What came out of Greenway Stimulus, which was our previous national policy, is that essentially we were recognizing that there's a ton of money out there in infrastructure spending. We really want to try 4 greenways, and not just for the East Coast Greenway, but 4 greenways across the nation to make sure that we get some of that money and it's used correctly and efficiently. And that's really what Greenways for All is about. So you'll see more about this throughout the year. We have funding through next year, I believe, for this, if I'm not mistaken, and we will just keep plugging along. So this is more of a federal type of thing. Okay, stuff. I'm glad Kim's here. Connecticut Trail Learning Committee, which meets every couple of months.
So it's every 4 weeks. So every the 4th Wednesday of every week.
Okay, thank you. Is kind of unique. It is basically a very loose affiliation of folks that want to talk about various bits and pieces of how to build trails, some of the nuts and bolts, funding issues, and we've gone through a number of topics, and it's been just great. So if you'd like to join that, see Kim, because she's running that. DEEP is now working on the statewide comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, which is every 5 years. It's called SCORP for short. It is a federal, basically a federal licensing thing that the state has to do to qualify for certain federal funding. And so this is ongoing right now. If you have an interest in that process, see me or Kim. We'll get you on the list because we'd love to have more people involved with that. That's ongoing as we speak. Seven Town Hot River Trail Alliance. We have a few friends here from that. I've been excited to be working with them. It's a great idea. It really is. To get basically the towns that encompass that trail together to do projects basically together, as opposed to apart, which is honestly one of the big deals in Connecticut is that we've got 169 individual little fiefdoms, and wouldn't it be nice if we worked better together and played together, asked for money together, and I'm looking forward to that. Same thing with the 12-Town Airline State Park Alliance. You see me there in my camo shorts, getting a $5,000 grant from Webster Bank at the Ramacan race. We've got a public-private partnership, which I think is very interesting. The Rensselaer Field Developer has offered this town $1 million to help build the trail. It's fantastic news, and it's really critically important. And I bring it up because I think you're all aware I do business in other states. Pennsylvania and New Jersey in particular are kind of poster children for how to get money out of public-private partnerships. We don't do that so much in this state. It's spotty, to say the least. And so I really like this idea. I think we need to, particularly as we get further along in the process, I think we need to really talk about this in some more detail. And I'm looking forward to doing that. Even more stuff. Connecticut Trail Finder, Connecticut Trail Census, Connecticut Outdoor Recreation Association, which I'm the treasurer of, Transport Hartford, which is also BCCO, Bike Walk Connecticut, Watch for Me Connecticut, that's Amy Watkins right there from Watch for Me Connecticut, which is kind of the major safety program out there in the state for bicyclists and pedestrians. And then a shout out to the Connecticut Greenways Council Trail Symposium, which is now 4 days, if you can believe it. with a lot of great stuff. A Trails film festival at the Warner on the 10th, the night of the 10th, and then a variety of things culminating in the actual Trail Symposium itself at Five Points campus in Torrington on the 13th, which, as the chair, I will host again. Here we are, and you all know this. The only thing I would point out here is that that piece of trail right there. Oh, you can't see that, Drat. The left-hand portion going up to Worcester, we essentially are no longer doing. We're going to go straight up, so on that right-hand piece, through Framingham and hook up with the Bruce Freeman Trail. So that's the Upper Charles Trail, most of that. And that was really something that we were working out over the last 2 years. We are nothing if not opportunistic at the East Coast Greenway. And one of the things we decided was that the area around Worcester was pretty much moribund for trail work. And these folks really, really wanted to build trail going up through this corridor. And so we shifted, where we're putting the corridor. And we do that occasionally.
You're shortening the trip from Providence to Boston by 10 miles, 20 miles?
Yeah, not that much. 8 ish.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, but it is shorter, and we feel ultimately just from a feasibility point of view easier to do. There was a piece of rail corridor. I mean, there's a piece of rail corridor on this piece too that still has to be dealt with. But in general, the theory was in talking to Mass DOT and the actors in the area that this was going to be just easier to build. Okay, Western Connecticut, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but I did mention the Stanford Greenwich Connecticut Rec Trails Grant. I have just been told that within the Fairfield County Bike Working Group, which is now 7 towns, Darien and Norwalk are going to apply for a Rec Trails grant this year, which I think is really cool to connect to this project. Other initiatives in Fairfield County, I've been in touch with Chief of Staff for Jim Himes. He's very interested in getting a line item in the budget for next year to do a Route 1 corridor study for all of Fairfield County. That would be very interesting if he was able to find that money. So stay tuned on that. And then the top thing I wanted to talk about is, in fact, the fact that New York State has spent around $230 million to build out the Empire State Trail, which they've done mostly successfully. It's mostly done. Some of it is still on road. But what it does do is it goes from New York City all the way to Brewster, New York. Now, if you're not familiar where Brewster is literally right across the border from Danbury. And so last year, Danbury asked for not a lot of money, I think it's $50,000, to do basically a feasibility study from Brewster, perhaps along 84, we're not quite sure where it's going to go, into Danbury. And they're now finally starting to work on that, is my understanding. And then I've talked to WestCOG, which is the Council of Governments out there. WestCOG is interested in looking through places like Sandy Hook. There's trail there to maybe hook up with the East Coast Greenway further along the line. So there's a possibility now, and here's the map, of an actual connection. So that connection we're talking about tentatively, very tentatively, is the yellow line, because that's in fact the old rail line, some of which is lost, some of which is being used. It's part of it's active. The part that we're talking about across the state line is not active. So the thick green line you're looking at is the Empire State Trail. The thick blue line along the shore is the current on-road route of the East Coast Greenway. The purple line, the thinner purple line you see above that, is the Merritt Parkway Trail, which has always been considered to be the route of the East Coast Greenway. It still nominally is the proposed route of the East Coast Greenway. And I think many of you know that to this minute that I know of, not an inch of it has been built in 28 years.
And they haven't released the environmental study.
And they're not going to. Yeah. They spent about $1.5 million on a study which they never released. This is DOT. So, be aware that this is out there. It's out there in the clouds, but no one's acting on it right now. So my theory is, let's try to do something through Fairfield County, down toward the shore, through the towns and cities. Let's figure out that as one thing. And the other thing, the thing that seems now most feasible, is to build out through Danbury from Brewster, where there's a trail that's finished all the way to New York City through Westchester County, which is a big deal. So we shall see, but I wanted to make sure you all saw that. Central Connecticut, you are all familiar with these, and I'm not going to go into tremendous detail because we just talked about a lot of these. But I did want you to see this, and I realize it's hard to see, but a couple of things of interest. We were assuming that about a mile of New Haven would be done for this year. Don't assume that. As of a couple of weeks ago, my understanding is that the electrical contractor for the piece from Yale, from Arch Street down to Orange Street, has had to be replaced. And Jim, I don't know, is there anything more on that we know?
No, just about that, and they're thinking April.
Yeah.
April timeframe to wrap everything up.
Okay. Because honestly, it's mostly done. If you've been down there, if you've seen pictures, it's gorgeous. I mean, it's a series of, it's dramatically down in the earth. It's where the old original rail bed was, and much of it is in fact tunnels. It's beautiful. It's very expensive, about $10 million, and I have a slide on that in just a minute.
It's not open though, right?
Not open as we speak. Moose Valley State Park Trail is in construction. I don't know whether any of you knew that. They have started on that project. They hope to finish it at the end of next year. There is one right-of-way that still needs to be purchased or dealt with for that project. Southington 3A, and I have slides on all these. In fact, I'm looking at what else I should talk about here. The Manchester piece, so you're thinking of the little piece that still isn't done. It's, the town has told me next year. It is, yeah, exactly, yes. Yeah. So it's, if you look at the map, if you look at map.greenway.org, it's a little jag like this that goes like this, and then back to the trail, and the Dairy Queen's kind of right there, and it's apparently it's on the list to be finished next year. Is what the town has told me. Yep. And my understanding is just contractual right now, but it should be ready to go. Any other questions on this? I could go into some detail about the Quinnebog River Trail, but I don't really think we need to go there. That's the Strife It Deep comment, where there's pieces of the trail there, particularly in Plainfield, near the fish hatchery, that certain elements within Deep maybe should not have a through trail through there, and we shall see where that goes. We're working with the agencies right now to try to smooth that out. The issue there is that there is, in fact, a federal earmark and those earmarks need to be spent within a certain period of time, and we want to make sure that that federal money is able to still be used for the project. So we need to try to push it forward as much as we possibly can. So stay tuned on that one. I'm sorry this isn't terribly easy to see, but I did want you to see that blue line, which is the current path of the East Coast Greenway. As we get Terrafill done, and literally Terrafill 1 is the next slide, which I'll discuss in a minute, and we can come back to this slide if you want. So there's Terrafill 1 that we just talked about, which is 0.82 miles, and we all know exactly where it is. It's supposed to be delivered in the middle of next month. And the idea with this is that we would once again, with of course Simsbury's approval, reroute the East Coast Greenway through the center of Simsbury, down onto the flats, through to Terrafill, and then we'd hook up with these now 3 miles of trail, and then come back out, and I'm going to go back, come back out, down where you see the blue line going into Hartford is going to be. So stay tuned for that. Now, New Haven Phase 4, I have a few slides here, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because I want to make sure everyone's able to get out of here if you want to go to Simsbury, to the Simsbury meeting. So 1.6 miles total. Canal to Orange is what I just talked about, now April 24. The State Street project, which is a mammoth undertaking and a very interesting one, late 24. And then Water Street, late 24 as well. Okay. Phase 4A, Canal to Orange. You will note that I've got renderings here because I decided not to use the current construction photos. I do have a bunch. These renderings, it is useful to note, were manufactured in 2011. And I did throw, and this is a little tongue-in-cheek, and I usually don't do this, but I thought I'd give you a timeline. So you see factoids? The oldest continuous bike ped project in Connecticut, by far. First proposed in 94, some say the late 80s. First funding, 98. First public information meeting with complete plans, 2011. Easement negotiations, 2013 through 2020, if you can believe it. The cost was originally $4.8 million. It is now scheduled to be somewhere around $18 million. We'll see if it actually stays at $18 million. How about that for a story? I had to do it. I don't usually do things like this, but I figured you really should see occasionally what happens in this state when you've got a bunch of competing interests. You've got, staff coming and going. I think during this period they've had 3 engineers and 4 planners. Just so you're aware. Anyway, 0.8 miles, $10 million. Okay. Whoops. Why is this not working? There we go. Phase 4B, the State Street redesign. As you're aware, State Street is essentially 2 different streets, right? In the center of New Haven. The reuse of the eastern side for a bike ped corridor, and you can see there the whole length. The top left is the top of Water Street. The bottom right is where the tunnel comes out at the top of Orange. And this is a very ambitious plan. It is also very interesting. It's one of the first uses of the Department of Economic and Community Development money for building bike trails that I know of in the state. And I wanted to call that out because it's very interesting. It really is, $6.1 million. Water Street. Some of Water Street's done, as you can see in that picture. However, the piece that isn't done yet is the bridge rebuild. And essentially the bridge, right there, you can see it in the top center, is going to be a grade separated side path inside the big cage. And I've seen well, that is a working drawing, but I've seen the other drawings, and it should work fine. And that's scheduled to be done end of next year as well. Southington, we've talked about Southington in the past. The thing you need to know about this is it was supposed to be one project. It is now two projects. Lazy Lane to Aircraft Road has broken ground. It will be completed next year, which is great news. It includes going underneath 84 and again ending at Aircraft Road. 3B is the famous piece that includes Yard Metals, which is still suing the state because they don't like where they thought the right-of-way was going to go. And that is still ongoing. We don't need to go into too much more detail because I could talk for an hour on this. But essentially, the Attorney General's office in Connecticut has now overruled itself 3 times. This current overruling indicates that Connecticut DOT, once again, cannot, we think, we're still not sure, we think get approval for right-of-way acquisitions for bike trails. Oddly, DEEP can. So explain that, well, I can explain that one, but it's so convoluted, I'm not going to even try. But what DOT was trying to do was piggyback on DEEP. And the AG's office decided that they didn't think that was kosher, so that's not going to happen. We may see legislation, we may not see legislation. I've talked to DOT's head of legislative, and she seems to think that they might not try to do this year because 24's legislative session is a short one. It starts in the middle of February, so it's much shorter than last year's was. And they may just not have enough time to get the votes for it. We shall see. Plainville 1. Plainville 1 has been ready to go for 2 years. It's funded. It has the same exact problem, which is right-of-way acquisition issues that need to take place for this to actually happen. There is something of a problem with this as well because Plainville 1 and Plainville 2 are subject to that fabulous RAISE grant that CROG got for New Britain and the Plainville projects. RAISE grants are an issue because that money needs to be spent within 3 years, as opposed to TA projects, Federal Transportation Enhancement Act projects, which you have like 5 or 7 years, right? Basically as long as anyone can stand to do those projects. Not so with these. You really have to, the money has to get going quickly with these. So this really is becoming an issue now. Plainville 2, the public information meeting was just not that long ago. And oddly, there were just a couple of questions about Tomaso Nature Park. But I thought that meeting went extremely well. There was not a lot of NIMBYs that came out for this one. But again, they've got right-of-way acquisition issues as well. And so this has slowed this one down as well.
Bruce?
Yeah.
Why couldn't you use eminent domain?
Same problem. Apparently,
People don't like to use it, I know.
yeah, well, yeah, politically, no one likes to use it. That'd be the first issue. So, the town would have to, pull the trigger on eminent domain. But I think the real issue is that the Attorney General's office would probably not sign off, is my current understanding. Would you say that's correct, Jim?
Yeah, if it's a friendly acquisition or unfriendly, such as eminent domain.
Yeah.
The AG is not letting DOT proceed.
Yeah. It's procedural. It's not how you do it or who you screw over. It's whether they'll sign the contract or not. Right? Yeah, I know. I don't get it. Eastern Connecticut. We talked a little bit about the resurfacing project. That is going to happen in '24, thank God, because I think many of you are aware the Airline State Park Trail has serious surface issues in a variety of different places, to say the least. And in fact, we've had now a couple of 200-year rainstorms that have, in certain parts of the trail, just destroyed it. And so one of the things I really do want to talk to Deep about is the Hampton Hole, a couple of other places that are not this piece of the Airline State Park Trail, but in fact, we could work on the potential for some recreational trails construction grants for resurfacing. So stay tuned. I do want to keep working on that. Quinnebog River Trail, I just talked about. Moosa Valley State Park Trail, again, just needs one right-of-way acquisition. It is now currently in construction. And one of the important things to recognize about that is that it is a direct connection to Coventry, Rhode Island, and the Trestle Trail. The Trestle Trail is on the Rhode Island's tip for next year, which means they're going to start construction of the Trestle Trail as early as middle of next year, which is really good news because that's one of the last major gaps getting into Providence, with the exception of just about a mile on the Washington Secondary Trail. And if any of you want more information on that, I'd be happy to oblige at some point. Hot River State Park Trail in Columbia, that really is all about the Willamette River Bridge. That's really all that trail, that project ever was the bridge. We've gone back and forth in talks. I will categorize this as the permitting is close. How's that? Would that be acceptable?
We're going to be meeting with their agency in October.
Okay. Okay. All right. So it's estimated at $4 million. That says Let's Go Connecticut. It actually isn't anymore. That's going to be TAP money. It's going to be federal money, isn't it?
That's refinanced.
Yep. So they refinanced it essentially because it took so long. 2-year project, so a minimum of 25 to see that done. Airline State Park Trail in Putnam. That is a Weston and Sampson design study. That's the last gap getting into Putnam. Hopefully, we can turn that into a project, maybe this coming year, and get that done. And then Thompson. And in fact, let's move on here. This is much of the trail we just talked about. Here's that bridge that we were talking about. $7 million, roughly, 0.83 miles, and is in fact the last piece of the Hot River Trail to be built. Here's the Moosa Valley Trail, little over 5 million, 5.5 miles, and is the connector to Rhode Island, which you see the state line right there. Okay, this was the last thing on the list. So the Thompson Gap received a Rec Trails grant of $450,000 to build up to the SNET Trail, the Southern New England Trunkline Trail, which goes all the way, that's that purple line you see, which goes all the way over to the top of Woonsocket and then connects down to Providence. So this is a major league connector for the state. And we're looking forward to getting that built. Now, with Thompson building their piece of trail, there is still a piece in northern Putnam that needs to be planned and designed. So this is not going to be complete really for a few more years yet. But stay tuned. This is definitely happening in the state, and Massachusetts DCR is committed to getting the SNET done. I think they're excited about this. And so I thought I'd show that little plinth there, which is right in the middle of the 3 states, and dated 1888 from the old train time hopefully we'll get it connected again for bicyclists and walkers. So, become a local advocate. What else do I have here? Join the Connecticut Committee. Sponsor local rides. Become an LAB League cycling instructor. This is earlier this year, the ribbon cutting in Avon for a small piece that was done in connection with the Avon Center project. And Dennis Marquetas Soriano is right there in the center, the East Coast Greenway's executive director. And you see a couple of other friendly faces there. And follow us and share your adventures. And that's what I have. So I went through a tremendous amount, tremendously fast.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.